Welcome to Roundtable Marketing Podcast, the podcast where marketers and those who buy marketing come together. My name is Nick.
And I am Brian.
And we're here to talk today about just getting started.
What are we waiting for? Let's get started.
Start now, start small, start again.
Let's go.
Why iteration beats perfection in modern marketing. I'm giving the whole heading here.
Can I say LFG, or is it not that kind of show?
I think you can say it, yeah. Lavender, flowers,
go. No.
grow.
Let's freaking go.
I'm ready to go.
Hashtag.
So my thought on this is perfection paralysis. I deal with it in my personal life, and I see it happen a lot of times with clients, with people I work with.
Yes.
Just that hesitance to get started and that really holding us back.
Whoa. I'm going to hold you back right now. Why?
Okay.
Why are you getting started? What are you even getting started with in the first place? We're saying, well, let's get started. I'm like,
that's the right question.
Are we talking about a workout plan here? What are we talking about here? Because
I think
I'm a business owner. There's a lot of things I need to get started. Probably need to figure out some health insurance changes for the 2026 calendar year. That's not what we're talking about. What are we getting started here, Nick?
Although I think these principles will apply to a lot of business operations, we're talking about marketing and specifically how to iterate in marketing.
Yeah, and getting it out there. Why? Because, one, marketing as part of your business is a place where it's really easy to just never get around to it. And when your business fails because you never marketed, you'll never know. You'll never be like, oh, you know what? I know exactly where I misstepped. It was because I didn't post on LinkedIn on Thursday. That's why I don't have a business anymore. You'll never know. You really will never be able to figure out that your lack of trying when it came to SEO, when it came to paid, when it came to redoing your brand, when it came to your logo, when it came to all those things, right? You will never know that that's why you didn't make it. And so while you'll know if you run a campaign and the campaign fails, you'll know if you redesign your website and your website sucks, like you'll know it. But you will not know if you don't get started in the first place that your marketing was the fatal flaw in your business. And businesses that have built themselves on reputation, businesses that built themselves on sales, one-to-one sales, they don't realize the impact that they have when they just don't do their marketing at all. Some businesses never need to do marketing, but if the thing that was going to make you crash is your marketing and you lose because you never got started in the first place, all you'll say is, we failed. We're just, part of the statistic. We're one of those 9 out of 10 businesses that just never make it. We folded. Oh, well. And you'll never know. And so that's the thing is like marketing is the place where you won't feel the pain of it until it's too late. And the pain doesn't feel like you missed marketing. So what's the antidote to that is what? Marketing is a place where you got to get started. You have to do it. You have to get started.
Right. And the real cost there is oftentimes it's hidden. What are the opportunities you missed? What is the momentum? What would your momentum look like if you had gotten started? That's hard to track. But if you get started and you do it, you can start to measure those things.
That's right. And so when you said perfection paralysis, we all feel it because getting started is hard. And in marketing, there's usually not going to be somebody sitting over your shoulder going, you better do it. So now you're like, well, gosh, what's that perfection paralysis? And it sucks. It sucks to be that way and anywhere in your life, but especially in marketing.
Right. And I get it, though, because I don't want to look like a fool. What if I stumble? What if I fall? What if I lose my step and I make fools of us all? Yeah. It's a common feeling.
Of
course
it is.
not.
Yeah, especially in the mid-'90s. But so we're worried about that. And, I don't want to look bad. And as a CEO of a business, I especially am like, I have something to lose. Because if I do nothing with my marketing, I also won't lose because I tried. I won't lose the game that I'm trying. I'll just, I'm not going to screw it up. And our reputation's not going to be broken. We're never going to get canceled because of the LinkedIn post I never made. We're not going to lose a customer over the post I never made. They're not going to see it and go, well, that's it. We're done, right? But there's that risk. I want to look bad, and I'm afraid of looking bad.
I think, but isn't it true if you apply that sort of risk mitigation, you wouldn't start a business?
I wouldn't leave my house, right?
Right.
I wouldn't leave my bed. I would just curl up and die, right? I mean, it's you have to go after it. But that's a real blocker, is that fear of failure.
And I don't think we expect everyone to listen to every episode, although, why not? We're right here on your app.
Just pause and just go back, check them all out.
But we talk about marketing roadmap. We talk about the audience journey.
Yeah.
The goal is not to get stuck in those planning phases. Those kick you off. Those get you going.
Yeah, and if you're worried about getting stuck in a planning phase, the better thing to do is don't plan.
Yes,
That's the better thing to do. Now, I wouldn't say that for every aspect. I mean, if you're going to undergo a 6-figure website project, just make sure you do your due diligence on it. But if you're really, really worried about your next LinkedIn post, that first LinkedIn post that you're going to make, just go for it. And a really great piece of advice that I got from Jesse Pujji was, he said this in reference to the way you sell. He said, are you struggling with how you sell your product? Have 10 sales meetings. By the 10th one, you're going to know what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that is true of so many things in life. Like if you said, hey, I really don't know enough about my audience to start posting and learn who you're supposed to be reaching. Spend the time, do the effort to figure that out. And over those 10 posts, I guarantee you your 10th post is going to be better than the first. And it's going to be more targeted and better. And the other beauty of making a marketing roadmap and working on your audience personas and doing all that hard work is you can also do that after you posted for the first time. It's an audience first mentality. It's still audience first to say, I care enough about my audience to make something for them. That is audience first. It's I'm going to spend a bunch of administrative time over solving my audience and over planning it and never getting off of a whiteboard. That is actually not taking care of your audience. That benefits you. It doesn't benefit the audience because you never even got out the door and tried to reach them. Being afraid of showing up and then doing nothing is not an audience first mentality. That's really it's actually self-centered ultimately is what it is.
And when we talk about marketers, we're not just talking about marketing professionals. In many cases, it's the business owner who has to be the marketer. It's the salesperson who might have to be the marketer. And what's keeping people from taking action is maybe a lack of clarity. But I think our argument here is that you get that clarity from looking at the results of your actions.
I couldn't agree more. And it all boils down to you're going to find out what's right as you go. You will not be able to figure out what's right just by sitting there and doing nothing. You can't prognosticate and figure it out and plan it. You're not Sherlock Holmes. You're going to need to actually get out in the field and go. And that helps. The other thing too, though, is look at what other people are doing, see what you see working out there, and then consider how to emulate it. I was just actually listening to this awesome podcast, and there's this guy, Oz Perlman, and one of the things he said was he would be on social media and he'd be looking at his peers, his competitors, or whatever, and he would have this tendency to sort of be jaded, looking at their content and thinking, kind of knocking them down. And he said, I changed my mentality, and instead I started looking at people's stuff and going, good for them. That's awesome. How can I do that? And he changed that mindset, and he said it changed everything because he started looking at it all as a growth opportunity. So when you're running into that hurdle of thinking everyone is doing so well, the competitors are doing so well, my friends are doing so well, the brands out there that I'm looking at that I love are doing so well, I couldn't do that. That very last bit of it, I couldn't do that part. Instead, change that out with, wow, that's really cool. I'm glad I like that. How could I do something like that? Or how could I do better than that? Or how could I do something that, hits me like that for my audience? And I thought that was really profound. And this he's at a performance level that, most of us are not at. He runs marathons for fun, he ran a marathon and then went and did a podcast. And if I ran a marathon, I would just be in a coffin. So, there's that level of performance too. And hearing it from someone like him, you're going yeah, that's what I should do. So what do I do? Well, I'm going to compare myself to Oz Perlman and not go, I can't run a marathon. I'm going to go, hey, it's really cool that he's out there doing that. What can I do in my life that's going to have an impact and start growing me and start making me better? And then, so now let's take it to something we've been talking a lot about social media posts. I think there's two sides to that. One, they're very visible, so they're just easy to spot, easy to target. The other side of it is, of all of your social or marketing challenges, social media is probably the easiest one to just get started on. And
Yes.
so when you're seeing that, so it's easy to compare, it's easy to see. I will tell you, it takes an expert's eye to look at somebody's website and tell that their SEO game is, killing it from a technical SEO standpoint. It's kind of hard to tell if they're killing it. I mean, you can Google their subject and try to figure it out, but you can't really tell how they're doing. I can tell exactly how somebody's doing when I look at their social media page. I can exactly how they're doing.
It's right there.
Like, it's really easy to tell because I can look at it and go, I like that, or not so much.
That's a really good point, because not only is it easy to get started on social media, it's easy to iterate because the response is right there for you to look at. I'm trying to think about why we have this analysis paralysis or perfection paralysis. I think we've had a lot of conversations about the importance of education. I'm a big education guy, but I think we learned some bad lessons in school that we take out into the professional world. And when you are being hit with a pop quiz, for example, it's like, however many answers you can get correct, that's your percentage, and that's just what it is.
Yeah. Well, and it goes into another sticking point, which is school teaches us that there is a right time for everything. It starts in the fall, it ends in the spring, finals are going to be at the quarters. You got to figure this out, you got to figure that out, yada, 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 right? And you're building towards something, and you can Doogie Howser and finish school early, but you can't finish it that early. There's a lot of things about school that tells you that. I think the business version of that is we are waiting for this perfect moment where we finally have the right time, we finally have the right budget, we finally really have the right capacity or the right team member or whatever it is. And so learning that school problem, like what you just said about the pop quiz, is exactly right. It's like you don't get to choose when the pop quiz shows up. And it's usually not going to be when you think it is. And so how do you win the pop quiz? You just do your best. And as good as you can do that day is how good you're going to do. And I love that mentality of like, pretend life is a pop quiz and, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to get out there and actually create something? Or this podcast, how long did it take us to get this thing off the ground? How long did it take us to get to episode 3?
Like fortnights,
I mean, it's been a minute. So, we suffered from this same thing, and then there was a moment where you messaged me and said, I want to get a podcast on the books this week. And it was yesterday.
Yeah, was it, who was suffering worse, I wonder? Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, but that's natural. I mean, you have more skin in the game, so.
Let's say I'm more worried about looking bad and you are more worried about having the time to do it.
That's right.
Because you're like, I'm worried Brian's going to be in the right mode or even at his house at the time of the recording, like today when I wasn't. It's there's I think there's a lot to it. But is then, Nick, your point, because there is no right time, it's always the right time?
I think my point is there's some permanence in your school grades that's not how it works in the real world. So if you let's say if you mess up, let's be kind of mean about it. If you mess up and you do something a little bit off brand, off kilter, our argument is that's better than doing nothing, because we're talking about reframing this as not trying to find the perfect approach right away, but to think of iteration as your strategy.
Yeah, well, and look for the ways to not mess up so bad. So, hey, I don't have a lot of time. Don't undertake a giant project. Do something small. Hey, I don't have a lot of budget. Don't start a $100,000 this month paid ad campaign. Start with a minimum budget. Hey, I don't have the capacity to do this the way that I really, really want to. Well, what do you have the capacity for today? That's a much better way to alleviate your pain, is rather than saying, well, I'll just wait till it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But instead, I'm going to go, no, I'm just going to do something that I have big enough steps to take right now. My legs
Brian,
are long enough.
I think I have the perfect quote for this, but I don't remember if it's from Socrates or Plato. Right.
Well,
so can we just say one of those guys said what I'm about to say?
Didn't Socrates also quote Plato a lot?
Yeah, so it could be both. You're right.
Okay,
But the saying on my mind is, "Well begun, half done."
Okay.
And the way that was told to me as a kid was once begun, half done, because that was coming from my parents, and it's just like do something, get going, right?
Yeah. Right.
And because that first push is the toughest.
Yeah. Now, the other side of me goes, but then finish. Like also
sure.
don't clean half
done
of
is
your room.
Yeah, half done's not good
because half
enough.
done is 50% and you failed.
Right.
Starting is half the battle would be the most modern version of it. I think that was Abraham Lincoln that said that.
And this sounds almost cliche, but just the idea that your first version doesn't have to be a failure. It could be a foundation for improvement.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, I recorded with another one of our team members, recorded the first 2 episodes, and they sat in the can for 3 years. That was a waste. It was a waste, right? I mean, we failed at launching. However, those 2 episodes I pulled into Notebook LM and AI and was able to create a library of content from it. So there's this world of like, I mean, even like, well, gosh, I mean, how bad could it be of launching a podcast would be to go through all the trouble of recording it and then literally never even post what you recorded. And even that was a success story because we tried, because we committed it to tape, because we actually sat down and recorded, we had the thing.
And you had to learn that lesson that banter is a little bit tougher with the red light on.
Yep.
I mean, I'll be honest, I get a little cloudy because of the performance anxiety. So yeah, you have to, but that experience makes the next one just better.
I think so too. So it doesn't have to be perfect. What's your remedy? Is your remedy to perfection iteration? Is that where you go? Like how do you deal with the fact that, well, we're not going to be perfect? What do we do?
I think so. It's about setting yourself up to learn what you need to know to do better next time. Right.
Yeah.
So
failing fast, right? I mean, like half of iteration is the idea that I know I'm going to fail. So how do I make it so that I can fail fast? And so for what we do a lot of times when we do a podcast and we create a podcast for a client, what we do is we plan an episode 0, right? Because we go, your first episode is not going to work. So even in this show, we recorded an episode 0. And I screwed up the settings on my mic, so we didn't use it, right? But we planned for it. Like, we knew that we were going to fail, so we had that plan, and we're like, yeah, and let's go. So that ability to plan for failure is you can fail fast. You can pull, SpaceX, and the rocket's going to explode. Like, we know it's going to blow up. That's what we're trying to do. We want to see when it blows up. Like, you can plan those iterations and actually get that through, the ability to fail fast, planning for failure, planning around, smaller increments, taking steps. A lot of people from the software world will know agile methodology. There's built into it a planned sprint pace where you're planning to meet and come back to it over and over again. You're not just going, let's see how it goes. You're actually saying, I'll see you in 2 weeks. We're definitely meeting no matter what happens between now and then. Those are things that help fix that.
Right. Let's talk about real world examples too, because, first of all, I want to say this iteration mindset does relieve the pressure of getting everything perfect.
Yes.
And that just frees up the creative process. It makes you more willing to try things, which is huge. I mean, the avenues for marketing are constantly changing. They're constantly evolving. So if you're not willing to try something new, then a year, 2, 3 years from now, you might just be stuck in the Stone Age.
Yeah. You'll be 3 years in and you won't have a podcast.
And the benefits of iteration as I see them, Brian, are you get the real-time feedback from your audience, especially with a lot of channels today. Faster learning leads to faster improvements. So the more you're doing, the more you're going to learn, and then you can make those changes. And then just less pressure to get everything right away because you have iteration as your modus operandi.
Yeah, and even if you're doing it on a public stage, like even if it's happening out in front of everybody, that's okay if you've planned it that way. In St. Louis here, there's this company, Hoffman Brothers, and if you're in St. Louis, you definitely know who they are because they've been advertising my whole life. I probably have a Hoffman Brothers heater in my basement or something. But what's really cool is the Hoffman and the Hoffman brothers, the brothers and the Hoffman brothers are not the 2 guys that are running it now or the couple of guys that are running it now. It was, their dads or their granddads or whatever running it, many, many decades ago. But around, I think it was 2016, 2017, the generation that's kind of our age started taking over. And so they started taking over. And so they're taking over this platform of like, this business already exists. By the way, though, that was the perfect time to pivot and start really figuring that out. So they start getting into all this stuff. They're getting into, buying up other businesses and really pivoting from being, a big name in town to being a national brand. That's a big pivot. So they're making all these changes. They're changing it over to where, okay, now we're going to start running this more like a holding company, more like an equity capital market company. We're going to be doing things differently on the backside of things. And so you've got Chris, one of the brothers, now a Hoffman brother, but of the later generation. And he's got to be the guy who's going to be making this happen. So what does he do? Does he just stay behind the scenes, run things? There's a lot of opportunity he's going to miss if he does that. Like, he just hides, So I don't know when he really started hitting it on LinkedIn. I'm going to say I've been following him now for probably a good year. But he has been doing this iteration in real time on LinkedIn. I've been watching it happen. And as an outside watcher, like, I can see how this is going. I can see the types of posts he's making, like he's trying this out, or I can tell that this one was probably written by somebody helping him out, or this one was, and this is all just guessing, but this one probably had a little bit of AI helping it out,
Sure.
Like, I can see that happening. He's done a lot of things. He's tried to review other things and talk about what other people got going on. I see him doing company-based things. I see him doing stuff about his personal life. It's all happening for us all to watch. And if I had run the tracking on him, I would have seen that, like, I guarantee you his followership, his comments, all the numbers are getting better and better. And it's working. I think it's really working. I mean, I'm talking about him right now. And even now, one of the things that I'm seeing him doing is he just launched a newsletter on Beehive. And so, like, even that's a very modern thing. Beehive hasn't been around forever. And, a friend of mine, Nathan May, he's one of the early stage people that really started moving the needle on these subscription-based newsletters. Now, Chris Hoffman, he's got a subscription-based newsletter called The Path Less Traveled. Like, there is this whole thing happening where he's doing it in real time and letting it go. And you're like, Chris, like, what's the playbook? And the playbook is get to the field and go. The playbook is let's start something. And I'm seeing this happening. And again, that admiration of seeing somebody take a step up to the bat and take a swing, like, he's really doing it and it's working. I'm engaged in the content. I'm in. I want to know about it. That's what it takes.
That's a good example too. And I heard a little bit of a nugget of a lesson there that maybe we can share, which is that on LinkedIn, the owner of a company or leadership within a given company are a huge part of that brand identity through their personal pages and what they post personally. And that's something that not everyone understands, but it sounds like Chris is taking advantage of.
And we've talked to a lot of people, Nick, that are almost antagonistic towards that idea.
Right.
I just want to be a behind the scenes guy. That's not my thing. I'm not in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera. And we've seen that a lot. And the reality is you are wasting opportunity. And it's really just a way to create resistance for yourself. That's really what it is. You're just saying, well, here's the reason why I'm not doing the thing that I should be doing. If it's just, well, I need to get out of the way and let everybody go. It's like, well, that's not what LinkedIn's about. That's a different place. And for the leadership, I wouldn't even just limit it to the CEO or the C-suite. I would say that really everybody in the company has an opportunity to grow the business through getting out there and posting and being on social media. Being social on social media is a successful business model, and particularly on LinkedIn and particularly for the leadership. I mean, that's a really great place to go. How about you're not in leadership, but you want to be in leadership? Well, guess what? Showing up on LinkedIn and doing stuff on LinkedIn will make you look like you are. And so, like, there's sort of a reason for everyone to contribute to what's going on. LinkedIn's in this magical time right now. There really is a lot happening on there. And not being a part of it because now I'm the behind the scenes girl. I'm the behind the scenes guy. It's not a good idea. That's not a strategy success. And it might be the thing that down the road was what you could have done to improve your company and is now getting in the way of your growth.
Right. And that's a little bit of an aside. We like LinkedIn because in general, I think that they've designed their website to be really beneficial to its users in the way that they want it to be, instead of just like, how can we keep people on this app with video content?
Yeah. Human nature didn't change. It didn't, right? So the reason Facebook and Instagram and TikTok have very similar types of content and user experience and comments and people hating on each other and all the vitriol and all that crap is because human beings like that stuff and we follow it. And then you get on LinkedIn and you're like, Are people not human on here? It's like, no, they're not, because LinkedIn cultivates a place for people to build business. And that's super, super valuable. They've created a cottage industry for your job, and you should go do it.
I completely agree. I want to get us back on track to the topic of iteration, because just like what I said about Socrates or Plato, one of those guys, wise words, they have a way of sticking in our heads. For me, they echo later on. And our friend Joe Lopez says something that I think is highly applicable here, which is make it, then make it good. And I think he has found tremendous success following that. Is that called a maxim? I'll call it a maxim.
I don't, with him, it's not even that he just says it. He does it all the time. Like, he makes it, then
we're
he makes
a part
it
of it, yeah.
all the time. Yeah. I mean, we've been the victim of this, this maxim, if you want to call it that. It definitely felt like a Roman legionnaire coming at us with a sword sometimes. But no, but it is. In a good way. Yeah, Maximus. But it's a difference maker, and I have applied it. I've said it to myself, and I've applied it. And I will tell you, I can't think of a ton of situations where I was unhappy with trying. I can tell you a lot of situations where I've been disappointed with lack of try. And I think that particularly in marketing, particularly in these sorts of endeavors, make it and then make it good. Build the plane while you're flying it, Like, it sounds great. And it's like, well, yeah, that's horrifying. I'm like, yeah, but then you're flying, yes. And if you crash, at least it'll look cool. But let's go back to, so Joe Lopez, Maximus Decimus Meridius coming at us with a sword. Just make it, then make it good. Ultimately, with make it and then make it good, it's really just a way to rephrase, just get started. It's really what we've been talking about this whole entire time. And what does it take to get started? Like, what's the first change you make when you're going to get started? Is it you write something down, or, like we said before, we know what it's not. We're not waiting until you get the perfect amount of time, money. Like, what's the step to get started? Where do you start?
Well, for me, it starts with your mindset. We've alluded to it a little bit, but there's kind of an openness that you need to have in order to adopt the iterative process. So mindset is a big one, and then just making sure you have the motivation to pursue a lot of different options, a lot of different paths.
So how do you get that? Where does that come from? So the mindset, I know I can sit there and change my mindset. I think I've learned how to do that. Then the motivation past sitting there, how do you get that motivation? Where does that come from?
I think it comes from seeing wins. When you've got no wins in hand, that's tough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you need some hope. You need some confidence. Maybe you need your best friend to slap you in the face and pour water on your head. I think once you start to learn lessons that immediately that you can apply, I think that's addictive. I think that feels good. So that can start to build motivation for continued iteration, which then, of course, creates momentum, especially when you start to see success.
Right. So you start with the mindset, start to build motivation that then gets you to momentum, and then it's a virtuous cycle.
They're all kind of elements floating around in the soup, but there's interplay. And so we talked a little bit about not being discouraged by failure and not thinking of failure as the end of the line, rather an interchange. I'm going to trains now, but you've reached the end of this particular strategy. Maybe you tweak it, or maybe you totally pivot. But you didn't fail. You got to the next chapter, and you learned the lessons you need to take the next step.
Yeah. It's not failure is not an option. Failure is a planned part of it, so that you know that it's like, okay, I know, because we're going to get to this next station, and then we're going to get on the next train. And it's like, I might end up on a train that's going east when I was just going west. But now I'm moving forward, and I have that momentum that I can then build something, because now I know where I'm going, and I'm learning more about the destination as I go.
And we're creative too. So another thing that sometimes we can deal with is, as a writer, it's called writer's block, but I'm going to keep bringing in quotes if that's okay. Paul McCartney says the answer to writer's block is work.
Okay.
And I always go back to that.
You're reminding me too of a really, really cool book and a concept. And I think you've read this, but if you haven't, just pretend you haven't read it, okay? So everyone's heard of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. There is one of my favorite books. It was originally sent to me by a great guy named Greg Holder, and then another guy recommended it to me, John DeBrock, and then I read it, and it changed my life, and now I can't stop thinking about it, and this has been decades. But it's called The War of Art, so take a little flip on Sun Tzu. But The War of Art, really the premise of The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is that whatever you want to call it, right or black, whatever, it's resistance. That's really what it is. Name it resistance. And say, like, whatever that thing is that gets in the way of me doing it, like if we were trying to be novelist, the difference between me and a novelist is they wrote a novel and I didn't write a novel, right? So whatever version of things that I can build between me and writing a novel that stop me from doing it is just resistance. Well, I need to have the perfect cup of coffee, and I need my laptop to be charged to exactly 93%, and I need no distractions, and I need my kids to be, out of the house, and I also need to be out of the house, and I need to be in this perfect environment, and it needs to be raining at exactly, 1 inch over the course of 10 hours, and, all these things, right? That's the only way I'm going to be able to do it. Everything you just said is resistance. Label it as such. And then move it out of the way and then do the thing and do what Paul McCartney says, which is, actually do the work. That'll get rid of the writer's block. That'll get rid of the stuff because you're never going to become a novelist if you don't write a book. That is for sure. 100% you will never be a novelist. And for your marketing and for your growth in your business that could come through marketing, you are never going to get it if you never start. So listening to Sir Paul McCartney, listening to Sir Stephen Pressfield, and listening to all these luminaries before us, like our result is we just need to get started. Like we just need to get started. And so finding tools and finding pathways to do that is the way in which we're going to make it, is if we just go. We press go and hit it.
With the momentum piece, our wins compound, effort builds skill, which is sort of what I was going back to with Paul McCartney. It's like, yeah, the more you work yourself out of that block, the easier it will be to get out of it in the future, and it'll help you keep your momentum, which is huge.
Well, and if we can get to where Paul McCartney is with our LinkedIn posts, not his LinkedIn posts, I think he's pretty lame on LinkedIn, but
sure.
But if we get, but just thinking of that, like, what do the best say? The best say this, so do it.
Well, and I have a note here too, and I just want to get your thoughts on it because there's kind of a counter argument against it, but I want to challenge anyone listening to think of their brand as a living, learning organism, something that's not fully reactive. You can be proactive, but not to get stuck. And that's tough for some people, especially if they've got a brand that has been built, like you said, Hoffman. This is a legacy brand in St. Louis, but they're changing, they're pivoting, so they're changing their strategy. So yeah, I would invite people to think of and challenge yourself about your own brand.
Yeah. And your first reaction is like, well, no, my brand is my brand and I can't move it. Response is, no, you can move it. How do I move it and not break it? Having first principles and having a why for what you do will help keep you in line. And it's not necessarily having core values. Having core values will help. But if you've got first principles, just coming back to going like, this is why I'm out here doing it in the first place. My why, as you well know, Nick, because I say it every day, basically, is build relationships, success will follow, right? That's my why, right? And so I am out here, everything I do, from building a business to doing this podcast to getting active and engaging with people on LinkedIn to really my whole thesis on why I think marketing matters is because communication matters, is because relationships matter. And that's what I'm doing. I'm building relationships. For me, that comes into everything. So when I go to my why, it helps give me that motivation and helps get me out there and go. And it also helps me know how to pivot my brand because my why doesn't care that the hex value for our black is 191919. It doesn't care. I know that, but it doesn't care, right? Because my why is bigger than that. And so having good first principles doesn't require your master thesis. It just requires you to have those first principles that you can use as a measuring stick to go, I can make this happen if I try. And so I know where to go. And that's really, if we could leave everybody with one last thing, it's just get started, have that first principle in place, and you already know what those are. They're in your heart. Just find them. but just get started and go. and live out those principles by actually taking action and going for it.
Love that. Great. Well,
All right,
you've been
bro.
listening to the Roundtable Marketing Podcast. We talked about getting started, the iterative process. We want to hear from you. If you have something in your world, it could be personal. It doesn't have to be in the professional realm. What are some examples of some things that you launched imperfectly that worked or didn't, and what you learned and how you adapted? We'd love to hear from you. So reach out. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know how to reach out to us, but we've got links in the description to give you a little bit more direction if you need that.
Yeah. And hit us up, message, airmail, carrier pigeon. We want any way to get a hold of us. We're there. We're waiting for it.
All of it. Brian, it's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Nick.
Just get started with the rest of your evening.
Godspeed.